Welcome to Johnny's Car Care and Reviews. We've got Dwayne with us this evening from Driven Wild Outdoors. Check his channel out, subscribe. Dwayne, thank you so much for being here. We're here to talk about Ford Ranger. We're two guys that ordered a Ford Ranger Raptor. So we're going to be talking about the Ford Ranger Raptor. We'll be talking about all the models, the XL, the XLT, the Lariat, and of course, we'll also be talking about changes that have been made, changes that will come, and speculative changes that might come. We'll also be talking about pricing, which one to buy, should you buy now, should you buy later, and the best model to get. We just finished talking about the Maverick, and I'd say just to conclude, I think any time is a great time to buy a Ford Maverick because the price is excellent. There's a ton of demand for it. I don't see prices going down anytime soon because, well, Ford prices their vehicles with time. Everything gets more expensive. But interest rate, as Dwayne has mentioned during the live of all of this, he's mentioned that interest rates can price you in or out of a vehicle. And Ford drops interest rates when they've got a lot of supply on hand and demand that's lower than actual supply. So when they have to increase demand, that's when they're going to drop the interest rates. We've seen it recently with the Ford F-150, the whole process of the last 3 years. We went from 0% to 7-8% interest on F-150s, now back to 0% interest rate available on the F-150. Now, the Ford Maverick, I don't expect any 0% interest anytime soon because demand is just too hot for that model. Now, the Ford Ranger currently at 8.49%. We will get to talking about whether you should buy now or buy later. And of course, we'll be talking about the best model to get. You almost picked up a Ford Ranger Raptor after waiting for it for a year. Was that a painful?
The wrong time, and our plans have changed. So we ended up not buying it at all. Johnny, I know I'm having internet issues. The I'm on my cell phone. I can't hardwire into the internet here, but off to a new house, a new home.
All right. So sorry, that cut in and out a little bit, but I'll fill you in with hopefully what everyone got. Let us know in the comment section if Dwayne, it's just on my end, maybe that his internet's cutting in and out. But yeah, he passed on the Ford Ranger, and I think it doesn't mean it's a bad vehicle. Like you say, you passed on it because you already have 5 personal vehicles, and your business has the truck. And well, you look at the Ranger Raptor, it's 83,000 Canadian. It's a good handful in the States, and actually dealerships are starting to charge markup on the ones that are available. Now, if you order anything from a dealership, please always get your build sheet signed. Get them to sign an offer sheet, like a lease offer or a purchase offer. Get them to sign it. They're going to ask for your signature to get, COVP, a confirmed order verification process with Ford. They're going to ask for your driver's license if they're ordering properly in a way that you'll actually get the vehicle. But they'll ask for your driver's license. They'll ask you to sign your build sheet, sign a purchase or lease offer, but ask for your copies with their signature of that so you're protected. But just the same, they're not giving away the Ford Ranger Raptor. So whether it's the best buy or not, I'm not so sure anymore now that we can get an XLT with a 2.7 liter engine for, well, 2,250 Canadian. It'll be about that price in US dollars. So let's go check that out right now. So
hey, M2Joe said M2Joe is wondering if I'm on a flip phone. No, actually, the good news is I'm in one of my house I built, which is insulated so well that it's hard for me to get. I would have to walk through to the other part of the house. The part of the house I'm in now is hardwired for internet, not Wi-Fi, believe it or not. So that's what happens when you have like 8 inches of wall and spray foam insulation and all that good stuff. It just makes it a little hard on the Wi-Fi.
But I'm happy you're building him well. It's good. No, it's good that you're building him well. It's important not to cut corners in any business, and then you have to go out and find the clientele that understand that, or can be made to understand that there's a quality is definitely worth more. If you look at houses built in Europe, certain parts of Europe, they're built more to how, you mentioned, instead of just thin little drywall and no insulation in between rooms, you actually have, concrete or stone or bricks in between walls of homes. For the Ranger Raptor, I'm convinced this is built well because we've had the 3-liter V6 twin turbo in the Ford Explorer ST as well as the Lincoln Aviator, and it's not an engine nor a transmission that we've seen issues. The amount of issues are unbelievably, they're very, very low. So it's a good, reliable setup. $55,470 US dollars will get you your Ford Ranger Raptor. And it looks like it's one heck of an off-road machine with the Fox shocks, skid plates. It's got the tires, it's got the suspension, but at the end of the day, we're also kind of going through the whole idea of, do we wait maybe 6 months to another year for our family to get a Ford Ranger Raptor? And if we're going to make a logical choice and invest more in our future, in our daughter's future for education and whatnot, retirement, should we really have an 83,000 Canadian Ford Bronco as well as an $83,000 Ford Ranger, or 55,470 without the $2,000 of transport and handling? Do we really want that in the yard? I think at the end of the day, we prefer the Bronco, and it makes a whole lot of sense to have the XLT with a 2.7 liter. Because if we go to, we pick 4x4, the Raptor is automatically 4x4. You can't have it 2x4. In Canada, you can't have any 2x4, meaning rear wheel drive Ford Rangers. They're all going to be 4x4. But the website has now been updated. Job 2, these vehicles are going to get built in July. For example, my dealership has a few builds of Ford Rangers coming for July production. So that's where we're at for the Ford Ranger. We're talking July production here, meaning it should show up at your dealership in the month of August or the month of September. And I think it makes the most sense to $2,195 gets you that fantastic 2.7 liter engine. We've loved our 2.7 liter V6 twin turbo in our Broncos. We feel there's so much pedal, and it's not like some companies, I won't name any names, but I mean like Chevrolet, you press the pedal down and the first 2 inches are so impressive. You get that first 2 inches in and you're like, wow, this is incredible. But then after that, it's kind of lost in space. You're like, nothing's going on here. Chev, did you forget? What happened to the motor? What's going on? So I used to work for a town, and we had Ford products, Dodge products, and Chev products. And no matter what Chev or GM product I got into, that's always what I noticed. It was the most impressive for the first 2 inches. You thought it was so much better than any other truck on the market. And after that, you're like, what happened? Is that all you got, bro? Was 2 inches all you got? And it was done. It was one and done.
Yeah, they're just trying to sell you on that, by the way. Hey, can you hear me any better now? And the signal coming in?
It's fantastic. I actually have to put a booster in my office down here. I've got a booster right beneath me to reboost the internet because I'm also without wired connection at the moment.
Well, tell M. Peugeot that I coiled the string up and put the cans away, and now I'm using technology again. I just I didn't want to move my phone around and do all that, but I just disconnected from Wi-Fi, so I'm on cell now. Let's see if that does better.
Fantastic.
So listen, when you're looking at the Ranger, part of the reason why the Ranger's wider, you did a video where you compared I think it was your Bronco to a Ranger that you had.
Yeah.
And you were really comparing how wide the new Ranger is compared to the Bronco, or it's almost equal to it.
Yeah.
So it's so much wider than the old one. Part of that is induction. They need a bigger space for the 2.7 when it does come out, but right now in the Ranger Raptor for the 3.0, they need a lot more cooling with that. And part of it was design, I'm sure, as well. But I think that what Ford did with the Ranger, definitely by increasing it, is going in size, physical size. It's going to now make it easier to manufacture at MAP, obviously with the Bronco, but it's going to appeal to more people. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be easier to produce because it seemed like the factory over the Michigan factory, it seemed how it worked is they produce a bunch of Broncos, and then it's almost seemed like it was 1 month Broncos, 1 month Ranger, but
Right.
never a decent month for both. So I think there was maybe a bit of added complexity there. Having them, basically the same width, I think should help. I expect really good Ford Ranger and Ford Bronco production this year. I know Ford Bronco production is high enough, and at such a point now that they're starting to pile up on lots that I've covered on
Right.
videos lately. But yes, the Ford Bronco Wild Track. So we have the second biggest Bronco. It's not a Raptor, but the Wild Track Bronco with the Ranger, and the Ranger was holding its own, and it was an XLT. And what's really impressive? Photos don't do it justice, but the fenders on this Raptor, and you saw yours in your potential Raptor in person. I kept
Yep.
walking around this. It was this was around for a few sunny days, so it gave me an excuse to go outside. But
Right.
the Ranger Raptor is massive. These fenders really pop out, and just
They do.
based on presence and look, I almost feel like it's worth the extra. What is it, 20 or 30? Uh,
30.
$25,000. It's
Yep.
almost worth it just for the presence, but nothing to take away from an XLT. It's got huge presence, and I do think, to answer your question finally and properly, I really do think it's going to appeal to
Yeah.
more people. Absolutely.
Well, and I think it's going to open it up, like I said, to more, with the V6, there's going to be more towing capacity. I know the towing capacity on the Ranger Raptor is less than it's going to be on the 27, what, XLT or something. But I'm almost wondering if the trimmer is going to be a better value than the Ranger. What do you think on that?
Yeah, I think you've spot on. If you're looking for an off-road machine, you've got one fantastic option, and that's to wait out the tremor. Or the other great option is to take your Ranger, option it with for $2,135, the 2.7 liter. Take the FX4 package, and just, I want to plug Tim Bartz. He said this at Long MacArthur Ford. He said this just the other evening, and I couldn't agree with him more. Fantastic show, folks. Don't forget to subscribe to Tim Bartz over at Long MacArthur Ford. But he made a great point, and I agree with him completely. And I've been debating this for the last 6, 7, 8 months. I'm like, should I just take an XLT FX4, throw on skid plates, and put on bigger tires? And essentially, I have kind of a Raptor. The engine's more than enough. Where I'll really be kind of losing out is the Fox suspension on the Raptor is fantastic, and I can attest to that. Having a 2023 Ford Bronco Wild Track, I have Fox suspension. I had a Ford F-150 Raptor with Fox suspension, and it's unbeatable when it comes to taking bumps, taking jumps, or
Yeah.
driving into just any road conditions, any off-road conditions. It's really hard to beat. I've never had such an enjoyable, comfortable driving experience.
Yeah. And don't forget, that has the watch linkage on it, versus the panhard bar on the Bronco Raptor. The Ranger Raptor has a watch linkage on the back, and it really helps it with stability. They've moved the shocks to the outside of the frame, which has given it more stability versus tucked up on the inside. They've done a lot across the board with the new Ranger. But I'm wondering too, if do you need the 406 horsepower unless you're out at Moab or somewhere out west? Or is that torque number really of the 2.7s going to give you that good solid torque number? Is that what you need, say, for wheeling here on the East Coast or in most parts of the country, where it's not the high
Absolutely.
speed, but it's that ability to turn a shaft, the wheels, the axle, and that's done by torque, not horsepower.
And absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And Peugeot's mentioning that the rear suspension on the Ranger Raptor is totally different and very much a huge difference between the regular Ranger and the Ranger Raptor. I have to
Yep.
agree with you. My F-150 Raptor, the suspension was just, I really much prefer it over a regular F-150, but I also really like the Tremor F-150. And I've had people who are very much into wanting comfort. They try out a Dodge Ram, a Ram Laramie edition, and they're like, wow, this is the comfort I'm looking for. But then they remember how everyone talks about how the bed, you put weight in the bed and the bumper goes towards the ground. Um,
Yeah.
and they want that Ford reliability. Ram has traditionally had a good number of issues when it comes to transmission, differential, and even frames bending. Last year, we picked up two that had bent frames, where the bottom of the cab had a big space, and the top of the cab between the cabin and the box
Wow.
had a little space. And that means the frame is finished. We couldn't resell it that way, and we had to, we had to invest in essentially a whole new frame. So Ram has their issues. Every manufacturer does, but for me, those are issues that make it a no-go. Whereas I've really loved I have had people go from the Laramie, they love it. They're saying, I think it's going to be a Laramie. I'll try driving again the F-150. And they want to try the Lariat again. And I'm like, hey, you've already tried the Lariat. You can, but to unlock that achievement, you first need to trust me and drive a Tremor. And 100% of the time, I've done this many times, 100% of the time, the people come back from test driving the Tremor going, wow, I
Yeah.
have top of the line quality plus
Right.
a hardworking, reliable, powerful truck that doesn't drink drink fuel the way someone who's now retired and can drink all day can drink alcohol and still be
Yeah.
coherent and walk around. So Ford's good for that. We don't have vehicles that are alcoholics, you could say.
Yeah, and let me tell you that I'm dropping and I don't want to plug my channel, but I'm
Please do.
dropping a video this week with it talks about oil again, so it's trigger warning. That's why I need to put on the thumbnail, trigger warning. It's not just about opinions. This is science based information about oil, and one of the biggest things we don't contribute to is fluid or gas fuel contamination to the oil. Cars that historically use more gas, they run richer. Sometimes tunes can affect this, but if you think about some of those vehicles out there, they're the same ones that probably need oil changes even more. But I'm thinking about Broncos and the 2.7, and now Rangers with the 2.7 coming up whenever we get them, and all of the potentials that's available with the 2.7. Uh, Destination Bigfoot Bronco just joined you, waving there in the chat. So hello. He actually has a Bronco with a 2.7 that is lifted. I mean, it's massive. It's lifted. Maybe he can tell us what size tires he has, but I mean, the thing is huge. And I don't think performance is an issue for him. So the 2.7 is a solid engine for that wheeling you want to do.
And Peugeot brings up two really great points. The 2.7 liter, you can tune it and get 400 horsepower and even more torque. And Destination, Peugeot's also mentioning that there's other reasons to get a Ranger Raptor, its uniqueness,
Sure.
and that's probably why you and I were looking at it and have ordered them. We like the uniqueness, we like the comfort and the look of the interior. It's got the Ranger Raptor has an incredible interior. And when originally over the computer, I was like, okay, so it looks a little bit better than an XLT, but in person, I mean, it looks way better than a Ranger XLT. But I think in order for me personally, for me to be able to keep my Bronco Wild Track, which I think I prefer because I've got the versatility. I can go wheeling, I can put the top down. It's kind of a do everything, go anywhere vehicle, except for its towing capacity, which we'll talk about in the last episode of tonight's live. Really hoping towing capacity goes up on the Bronco. But the more off-road you make a vehicle, the less you can haul and tow. And the F-150 Raptor is a great example of that. There was some years where the F-150 Raptor could only tow, I think it was 5,500 pounds, and had a much lower um, hauling payload rating. For example, the Tremor has a payload rating in the 1,500 pounds, whereas the payload rating on your regular Super Crew 4x4 F-150 is in the 1,800 pound range. And some F-150s last year, 2023, get one if this is what you need. But the heavy payload package on the F-150 is gone for 2024. I don't see it coming back. And it can take roughly about give or take 2,200 pounds. Originally we could get it on the Lariat, and then we could get it on the XLT. That went away. Both went away with time, one after the other. And now we won't be able to get on the XL anymore. So if you do need kind of the capability of an F-250 when it comes to payload, that 250 diesel runs about 1,800 pounds. If it's, the 9,900 pound PNBV, which in my area is kind of needed to not get annoyed by the government constantly. So everyone wants that under 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating. Sorry, GVWR. I was in PN. The initials are it's a French thing. So sorry about that. But yeah, last year to get your heavy payload package. But you make a great point. Payload changes when you have a softer suspension. So that's another great reason to get a Ranger Raptor. But I think when you brought up the point, like, hey, what about the Tremor? The Tremor is probably your best in-between option, or you can go
Right.
down the road of modifying an XLT. Now, just looking at pricing on the 4, and then I want to hear your opinion on what would be sort of your dream Raptor versus the dream Ranger versus what makes the most sense. So we'll cover that in just a moment. But for pricing, if you go down the road of an XLT 4x4 with the 2.7 liter, the pricing is pretty interesting. You know, if you pay that on 5 years, you put, let's say, $4,289 down, you're at $765 per month US. If you don't put any money down, you're looking at $850 per month. And if you kick it up to 72 months, you're at $732. But here's the catch. Ford Ranger interest, at least in Canada right now, it's, going to play around 8%. And let's check out the interest we've got here. We're looking at 72-month term at 7% interest. If you lease it, there's no options right now for leasing, but I'd say when it is leasable, we're going to be looking at about 8%, 7 to 8% if you're going to be purchasing this. That I'd say if you wait. Now, of course, the excitement often is getting the vehicle when it's fresh on the market. But if you wait for a Ranger long enough, once there's actually available ones on the lot and not this high demand for the Ranger, you might have to wait a year, but you will get a better interest rate on a Ranger if you wait. You'll get a better deal, folks. That you'll miss out on the excitement of having the new vehicle that people are going to say, "Hey, is that the new Ranger?" You're going to miss out on that process.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back. Hey, so let me tell you, the 4-foot wide plywood that now fit in the bed of a Ranger is a game changer for contractors, right? So,
Great
I mean, I
point.
know it's a first world problem, but if you always thought about before, sheetrock, drywall, or many other things, that 4-foot wide actually now makes the Ranger much more appealing to contractors. Also, as the towing capacity has gone up. So, if you mentioned the perfect Ranger, the perfect one would have a longer bed,
Yeah,
right? Offer an
that's right.
extended bed, and now it becomes the perfect work truck because now we're dealing with the fuel economy versus the larger one. We can tow just about whatever we need to tow at 7,000 pounds. And if we had a bed that was 4 feet longer, I mean, it would look kind of odd, but it would be the perfect work truck.
Those are some excellent points. I'm glad that Ford didn't have their towing go down, even though this is 2 inches wider, 2 inches longer. They still have the same great, because towing 7,500 pounds it's pretty darn good. It's
Yeah,
gonna meet the criteria of most contractors if they're honest about what they're actually pulling. Often have contractors, say, "Oh, I want the heavy payload package," but when I ask them how much they tow, they say, "Well, usually 4 to 6,000 pounds." Like, well, I'm thinking to myself, a Ranger would work.
right.
Any engine option on any truck would work, but they want they're always in that just in case scenario.
Yeah,
I think this vehicle could really benefit from what might be coming to the Ford Maverick, the mid gate,
right.
the capability of putting below the window, the metal beneath the window, having the box and the bed metal come down, the cabin metal, so you can actually put things through the back seat. So yeah, the perfect Ranger doesn't exist.
It,
You only have the 4-door Super Crew option.
right.
But if you're looking at an XL at 36,315, if that's what you can afford, and you're looking at that or a used vehicle that's 4 or 5 years old to save 10,000, I'd go with the new vehicle, full warranty, less repairs, less maintenance. People usually think about the price here and now, but it's really about the price here later to own your whole ownership experience and resale value. And Ford Rangers have excellent resale value. It's one of the reasons why I would highly recommend a Ford Ranger, but I don't know if I get one right now unless you have a good portion of the amount to put down cash. And so that amount, if you're looking at an XL, you're looking at 36,315 if you take it 4x4. You save not quite $3,000 if you take it 4x2, but your resale value won't be nearly as good as if you get the 4x4. Speaking from experience, see it on a weekly basis, folks. The XLT, 39,595. 4x4. That's what I would recommend, even if you only need a 2x4. It's all about that resale value. You've got the
Right.
Lariat at 47,115 and the Raptor at 55,470. And yes, I think, for me, the best value and the one sort of my dream Ranger, so that I can also have a secondary vehicle that's really amazing, like the Ford Bronco, would probably be Tremor, but in XLT trim, because Tremors always seem to come and you can have like your full leather. It's like Lariat plus Tremor
Right.
conversion, and you
Yep.
can have your XLT Tremor conversion. So if we're looking at a five, six
Yep.
thousand dollar option to go Tremor, and if it comes right out the bat with a 2.7 liter, that would be a steal of a deal. If not, XLT 2.7 liter, give it a little lift of 2-inch leveling in the front, throw on bigger tires, and I think we've got something extremely interesting there. Not to take away from the Ranger Raptor, if you have the money, I've seen it in person and I want it, but I
Yeah.
also want to keep my Bronco. You gotta
Yeah.
set limits at a certain point. I've got for the channel, I want to kind of fix up and go through the whole ownership experience of having two Porsche 911s, and I won't have that money to do any of that if I've got two expensive vehicles on payment in the yard.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it all too. Like I said, yeah, how many vehicles do you have to have or want to have? Of course, we all want whatever, but so we got to keep things. Johnny, and I don't want to jump over because you're going to do the Bronco stuff later, but think about the Bronco. What about the Oats? The Oats was sort of that name we heard about the Bronco, but we haven't heard it again. And if you think about, I know it's kind of funny, but Hall and Oates, the band, right?
Yeah,
I wonder, like, wouldn't it be cool to make the Bronco trim that is still an off-road vehicle, but not as capable as, say, a Badlands, a Wild Track, or a Raptor? However, it would have a different spring ratio package so that you could tow more. Because that's the
yeah,
ability with the Bronco is the suspension. You were mentioning that earlier. What if they could do a
absolutely.
package in there to get to 7,000 towing? That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I know. It's I like that you actually thought of what they could call it, or whether it's they couldn't use the Eddie Bauer name because that always meant added luxury and a whole lot of beige everywhere. But they could definitely use, and I kind of like the whole idea that you've got there, sort of like but it have to be, instead of soft rock, it need to be hard rock since it can tow more. So they'd
Yeah.
have to find a hard rock artist, maybe some '80s Bon Jovi hair metal, to name it after. But yeah, if they play around with the suspension, you
Yeah.
definitely could have a Bronco that tows more, but just wouldn't be nearly as off-road worthy when it comes to whether it's rock climbing or driving through the driving at high speeds over, really bumpy terrain. But
Right.
I think that would definitely be more versatile. They'd reach more of a clientele, but maybe, and we'll get to there in a minute, but maybe the solution is just to come out with pickup truck version of the Bronco. Because,
There you go.
you know, why not? Why not?
It's the perfect mix, and I don't think at map it would be that hard to manufacture it because it's sort of the Bronco Ranger mix.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think it works.
Hey, let's hope that the Ford Ranger and Ford Bronco are going to be like teenagers. If you
Yeah.
put them in the same room, you're going to end up with grandkids. So, and let's hope the grandkid is Bronco pickup truck. A lot of us,
Yeah. There
for
you go.
us, it'd be the perfect solution. We get everything that we need in one, as long as we can take. We want the sun. We
Yeah.
want the hauling from when we do house
Right.
projects. I think a lot of people want more versatility because the days of having two new vehicles or three new vehicles in the
Right.
yard are becoming less and less possible for more and more people, even though we used to live in a society where only one person out of the couple worked and the other person focused on raising the children right and making sure that the kids had good values, that they're more stoic, they're more not so darn sensitive, and not so darn sensitive, but
Hey,
they
hey,
they
hey, they needed
grew
more
up.
people to tax. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
precisely. I
So,
couldn't
yeah.
agree with you more. Big scam to get more people to tax, to get
That's,
more money in. But if they just controlled inflation,
yeah.
the money would be worth more.
Right.
So we've covered, I think, best model to get. I'm voting if you can afford a Raptor, but it makes more sense to get something a little less, take the Tremor. If you can afford an XL, if that makes a lot of sense to you, well, maybe get the little extra appeal when it comes to looks and go with an XLT. You can't get the 2.7 liter on the XL, but you can get it on XL. And for me, a 2.7 liter V6 is a must have on the Ford Ranger. The 2.3 liter isn't bad in any way. It tows, it
Yeah.
works, but I love everything about the 2.7. The instant torque, the sound of the engine. I just love a good, powerful V6 with turbos. One of
Yeah.
the reasons that we always, didn't got really close to buying a Jeep because we like the looks, even though it has that front nose going in the way the 23 Ranger did, that we do not like. We're not fans of, neither Marie or I are fans of the 2023 Ranger look. Marie really loves the look of the new Ranger. She thinks it's a 10 out of 10 success, one of the best designs on the market, but there, in no way would she will not be happy if I think she'll cry if I trade in the Bronco for a Ranger, because at the end of the day, for her, the Ford Ranger is a truck, and the Bronco is like this magical. It's a magical machine. It's a unicorn
Yeah.
on the market. That was half French, half English. The word I was trying to pull out there, I
Yeah.
guess.
You created a word. Also, the Bronco has more of a community attached to it than say a truck.
Yeah,
I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of truck clubs and things like that, but let's face it. There are when you get down to it, the cruises on the beach. It's been a long time since I've seen a lot of pickup trucks cruising together on the beach as a club, but Jeeps or Broncos, yes, you see it all the time, right? There's
the
more of
trucks
that.
go, just not together.
Sure, it's that culture that
Yeah,
kind of goes with that special vehicle. So if you're looking for that whole relationship side of things and the fun after just driving it to do what you need to do with it, I think the Bronco is the winner over the two. However, speaking about the Ranger, I would go with the Trimmer, probably for cost and in the ability for what it is.
yeah. And the cool factor. I don't need everyone looking at my vehicle. But I certainly do like it that if they see it, like I like to be a good, kind of ambassador, you could say,
Sure.
to Ford. And whether it's Ford or whether, whatever brand I have in the yard, I want it to be as clean as possible for it to run, be as well maintained as possible. I like to be a good, I like to keep my things clean and looking good. It's not so much about getting the eyes on me, but it's more about, just pride in my things. And I think the Tremor is something that I could really be proud of. And I think the XLT 2.7 liter is like one of those, look at this smart, I could justify it to Maddie. It's like, look at this smart decision I made. I wanted a Raptor. The Ranger Raptor is the dream option, but then the reality is that there is added cost to it. And the price on the XLT 2.7 liter, I don't think you're getting anything like that on the market. I love that V6, and we've never bought a Jeep because their six cylinder is really flat and boring. It starts to get interesting at 5,000 RPM. And honestly, it's the one thing that bothers me with the two Porsche 911s we've got in the yard. They're not the new ones that are all turboed.
Mhm.
All the not new 911s are turboed, and they're just, they've got a lot of pedal instantly. Those that generation, the 996 generation and the generation after, prior to putting a turbo on the V6, you put down the pedal and you're really getting that, kind of this is cool factor at 5,000 RPM. It's always nice to be able to have fun without being a criminal. So another point to the 2.7 liter, the 2.3 liter is great. It accelerates very, very well. It's just the 2.7 liter makes you feel great instantly. It's got that instant torque to kick you in the seat, make a bunch of noise, and take off.
And the power band is very broad on it, so it carries that feeling further through the RPMs than some engines, which it peaks early and then drops off, or it's lagging, like you mentioned earlier in some of the GM products. There's a little bit of an
Yeah.
instant gratification, and then the reality that you didn't buy a 2.7.
I feel like the GM trucks, if they how they're set up, it's kind of like a sugar high. When you have sugar, you have energy for 2 minutes, and then there's this crash that
Crash.
people don't
Yeah.
realize. They just think, "Oh, I'm tired again. I need more sugar." No, the sugar is the problem. You're having the crash. You're feeling tired more than you were before because it's only worth 2 minutes, just like the 2 inches of pedal that are super impressive on those GM and Chevs.
Well,
So I'll have to test drive one again to see if they've changed that up. But that was certainly the across the board feeling that I've gotten in the past. And also when I pass them, kind of not racing, let's say, generally it's like this, oh, this is going to go poorly for me for like the first little bit. And then it's like, oh no, this is actually going quite well. So, talking about things going quite well, let's get talking about the Ford Bronco. I think it's time. I know I think I'm pretty certain you're ready to talk Ford Bronco. You're an expert when it comes to this. You've got two at home right now.
I love the Bronco. Yeah, it's interesting, and they're changing it just enough to keep you interested. And maybe want to trade one in one day, but we'll see.
Now, to wrap up the Ranger show, we do just want to point out there is an F-150 you can barely see behind this Ranger. So imagine just a 2-inch leveling kit on this Ranger and a bigger tire. It would have just about as much presence and maybe more wow factor than your regular F-150. Now, of course, the F-150 Tremor, I love them. I think they're a fantastic deal. I think it's wrong to call them, the best expression is like a baby Raptor, but I'd say, little brother or less steroided out version of the Raptor would be the Tremor, and it's just a fantastic, comfortable ride. So I'm really convinced that the Tremor Ranger is going to be just an incredible product to get, very much worth it. And yes, the Ranger Raptor is very impressive. I had photos of the interior, very impressive, and I thought the exterior wouldn't be nearly as impressive, but when I saw it in person, I was like, wow, these fenders really are big. This is special. Even my father was walking around it, and he's like, he usually isn't a pickup truck fan at all, and he's like, don't get a pickup, get a Mustang.
Yeah,
Don't get it. He's a huge Mustang fan. He's got a couple, but he's like, wow, you should buy this. And I was like, what? You're telling me to buy a truck? He's like, yeah,
yeah,
this is really impressive. This is got a lot of look to it.
yeah. Ford has really done well with with the Maverick and the Ranger, both different segments. They've really hit it out of the park with both, I think. So definitely a good job on the design side of things. That's an expensive looking driveway there.
Well, the 996, because they can be a complete catastrophe. How you say, a timed grenade. You can get them for incredible prices. It's wild how a generation before you're looking at 100 to 180,000. The generation after you're looking mostly in good condition,
Hey,
70 to 100,000, and then these are like a third of the price.
I want to tell you, when you were driving the red one home, I like went and got popcorn because I was like, is it going to make it? Are the brakes going to make it? The rust on the brakes and the temperature and you couldn't get the hood open. It's like, oh, geez, man, I got the popcorn for that ride.